Kei ngā waiwai kai pakiaka, kei ngā waiwai kai kapua o te motu rarau mai ki te hui. Ko mihi ngā rangi tēnei e mihi atu nei kia koutou katoa. Welcome to the Hui, Maori current affairs for all New Zealanders. E taro ake nei. An iwi left high and dry, while water turns to wine.
When I see no water in my awa, it hurts. It hurts deeply.
For decades, the people of Bridge Pa have been fighting an environmental disaster on their back doorstep.
They've been doing it for years. Get to the summertime, there's nothing in there. And we've had enough.
We look at a water crisis in Te Matau a Maui. Kara hui hui mai. Later in the show, we'll discuss the Maori Party's donation controversy. Engari, mātua rā I tēnei pō. In 2017, Jacinda Ardern pledged to clean up our rivers and make them healthy again. But for the small settlement of Bridge Pa in Te Matau a Maui, their awa is bone dry. The over-allocation of water to industry in the region has sucked up what was once thought to be an endless supply. Mana whenua say their needs have been overlooked and their rohe is a glaring example of the haves versus the have-nots. Kaya John Boynton, te roa ngake o ngā kōrero.
If there's ever a place which illustrates the water crisis Aotearoa is facing, it's here in Bridge Pa. For 3 decades, this community has been left high and dry.
When I see no water in my awa, it hurts. It hurts deeply.
So why is it so bad, and why has it been allowed to go on for so long?
Historically, we've had a first in, first served approach to allocating fresh water in this country.
I'm quite happy with how I am here by my lake, which gives me enough water to see me through.
Bridge Pa is a small, predominantly Maori community on the outskirts of Hastings. But this is ground zero for the water crisis here in the Hawke's Bay. The Haukainga has watched the awa run dry during the summer months. But in the past, the Karewarewa River was teeming with life all year round.
I kaukau mātou I tēnei awa. I ngā raumati, ia hene raumati, ia hene raumati. He paurika ki tātu maira nei te wai koe ko ngotetia mai te wai. Ko tango maira nei te wai ko nei.
So how did this once flourishing awa end up looking like this? When just upstream, it's a different story, with kilometres of lush green vineyards and orchards.
The wine industry is worth more than $2 billion to the New Zealand economy, and the Hawke's Bay is the second largest wine-producing region. But it's part of an intensive horticulture industry which is drawing on scarce water resources here in Heretaunga.
For years, these industries have taken groundwater to use for irrigation, and in turn helped to transform the Hawke's Bay into food and wine country. A term Hirahuata is deeply insulted by.
This is not wine country. This is Te Matau a Maui. That's really about certain people being able to invest and make monies from this area by now implementing another industry.
And while these industries make money, most summers the Karewarewa River dries up. The removal of groundwater for orchard, vineyard and crop irrigation thought to be a major contributor.
The state of our aquifer needs huge aroha. When we talk aquifer, I talk the whole systems, including the rivers and streams. There needs to be a whole mindset change in Te Matau a Maui.
And the community at Bridge Pa is fed up with profit taking priority over the health of their waterways. Today, Hira is holding a hui at Mangaroa Marae on the crisis her community is facing.
My dad has to go looking for water, Chris. Most times it's always on the farmer's land. It's polluted from the offloads that go into the river. That's the kind that we have to eat now.
They've been doing it for years. Get to the summertime, there's nothing in there. And we've had enough. We need help badly.
But while Bridge Pa runs dry, at Te Tua station there's a seemingly endless supply of water. Farmer Mike Glazebrook owns the property.
This is a 18-hectare dam I put in about the year 2000 to give myself some water security during prolonged dry spells when the river would go on ban. This dam services Te Tua station, which includes vineyards, orchards, organic maize cropping. So this dam is large enough to see my own property through a quite severe drought event.
When it comes to a community like Bridge Pa, your dams here are full of water, but when you go down to their awa, it's bone dry, it's becoming more common. They've lost the use of their awa. What do you say to those communities who have no water at the moment?
Well, I've been saying for a long time, let's fix it. Let's get more water into the system.
And we think
The Hawke's Bay Regional Council Chief Executive James Palmer is the man tasked with trying to fix what is an environmental disaster to the people of Bridge Pa. Firstly, his council's had to accept the impacts that vineyards, orchards and farming have had on the water.
water has been allocated in Heritonga from the groundwater system on the assumption that we weren't having a significant environmental effect. Now, the work that we have done as a council, the science work we've done over the last decade and more, has put us now in a strong position to understand that there are significant environmental effects from the cumulative allocation that's occurred over time.
3 years ago, a moratorium on new consents for taking water was introduced.
So what we're really saying as a council is there can be no more development of water use in this catchment until such time as we've remedied the environmental issues.
And so does that mean there'll be no more wineries, there'll be no more orchards, that's it?
So for now, we're seeing absolutely no expansion in those industries because we're not allocating any more water. We're absolutely clear that the environment comes first, that is the priority, and then after that, providing for people, and then ultimately industry comes third.
How can you say the environment is the priority when it seems like for communities like Bridge Pa, the economy has come first for such a long time?
So there hasn't been a priority for either the economy or arguably necessarily the environment historically because of two things. One is that there was a view that the aquifer system was largely inexhaustible. So many people in Hawke's Bay thought that we were miles off being fully allocated and there was still lots more water to use.
They were wrong, and the council is now realising there's a major environmental problem. Next month, the Hawke's Bay Regional Council will hold a hearing at Mangaroa Marae in Bridge Pa, presenting its proposed policy changes for managing water. But they're walking into communities highly sceptical of the council's management of the water. And for good reason.
So there's no water coming out of there? No water at all.
In 2009, the water completely ran dry in Bridge Pa, leaving residents with nothing to drink.
I have two babies, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. Yeah, it's hard. It makes everything harder.
And in 2016, 4 people died after drinking contaminated water.
17 people are still in hospital and 1 remains in intensive care.
Why should this community believe what you're going to do? Because they've had a long history of mismanagement.
I understand the hurt and the frustration about the way that we as a community have historically managed these resources. For far too long, we have considered them to be resources simply for exploitation and to provide for economic and social needs. So historically, the management of fresh water, both in this region and nationally, has been deficient.
So the council is now on the search for water storage solutions. And one proposal on the table is a plan to expand Mike Glazebrook's dam. He wants to make his dam even bigger, expanding it to where this blue drum sits. He believes this will allow enough water to be collected for both irrigation and to help keep local streams flowing during the summer.
Maori communities like Bridge Pa, they see landowners who are being allowed to collect water in dams like these, and yet you've got the government saying nobody owns the water and their water rights are being taken away because they have no awa. What do you say to those arguments?
Well, it's not going to be me who controls it. So any thoughts that, this is going to be a Pākehā water baron setting himself up to control the local water supply, that concern is without foundation. It'll be a regional council controlled operation.
Do you think it is a good solution?
Definitely not. It's supporting the damage that's already there, causing the damage here.
The Regional Council says it isn't favouring the Glazebrook Dam project, but sees the potential in it.
We are still going to need to find further solutions to offset some of the existing environmental impacts, and the reality of that is that some form of water storage is necessary.
But after our interview, the Regional Council confirmed it will invest almost $5 million into finding water storage solutions, with a major focus on the Glazebrook Dam. But fixing the problem at Bridge Pa in the near future seems unlikely.
Can you promise that the Kārewarewa River will have some water in it next summer?
We've got more work to do to understand whether or not we've got viable solutions there.
So that's a no?
So next summer, it will be too soon for the whole package of solutions to really start delivering outcomes.
Hida Huata says she's heard promises being made and broken over the last 30 years.
Do you have any confidence in the Regional Council?
No. No Maori here does.
And the battle to save her waterways is one she doesn't want future generations to have to carry on.
I don't want my mokos to be fighting the fight. Where's their waikoko? Their waiū? Their waiora?
No, nā John Boynton te rā ripoata, and we asked the Minister for the Environment, David Parker, to be interviewed about water, but he declined. Hei muri i ngā whakatairanga ka kōrero ahau ki te pirihitini o te Pāti Māori kia Chair Wilson. The Maori Party is in hot water for failing to declare almost $330,000 in donations. 3 donations from 2020 were not declared within the 10 working days required by the Electoral Commission, and now that matter has been referred to police. The donations include $158,000 from John Tamihere, $120,000 from a company Aotearoa Te Kahu, and $49,000 from the National Urban Maori Authority. Nō reira, hei whakamārama I tēnei take, kua hono mai te pirihitini o te Pāti Māori a Chair Wilson. Tēnā koe hoa?
Tēnā koe mihi, aha kua kaori te kitei a koe, tēnā koe.
Aroha mai rungi tēnei āhuatanga. Earlier today it appeared you were blaming party volunteers. Is that fair?
I wasn't blaming any volunteers. What I was saying was that we are volunteers, we're rookies, and as soon as we realised that we hadn't declared, we went straight to the Electoral Commission. I'd never blame anyone else, which is why I'm fronting this.
Ka pai. I guess people would accept, you know, that at the term you use rookies, you know, you've not really been in the political game for a long time, but John Tamihere, he's been in there for a couple of decades now. Is it acceptable for some of this, with so much experience as John Tamihere, to miss this?
Well, I think the key point is that John wasn't part of the exec, so it is what it is, and we've got to just make sure that we continue to work with the Electoral Commission and the police to go through this process.
So I named the 3 donations at the beginning there. In an interview I heard you earlier this afternoon, you said you weren't aware of these donations. Is that correct?
Yeah, so once the details behind these came to our knowledge, we then went straight to the Electoral Commission because we were late. So can I ask you a question about the National Māori Urban Authority? As you know, nearly $50,000 has come from Numa. It's a collective of Māori providers, including Manukau Urban Māori Authority, Waipareira, Te Kōhau Health and others. They are whānau ora providers and they receive government funding. Are you surprised that that money has been supporting a political party? Yeah, we can only talk about what we've done, and you need to talk to Numa about that, mindful that we're in a police inquiry now, and so you'll have to talk to them directly.
So are you concerned about that then? Because, you know, when you consider that the argument from the Māori Party is that whānau ora doesn't get enough funding, and here we see $50,000 of their funding going to support your political party.
Yeah, I can't comment whether it's whānau ora money or whether it's other money. You'll need to talk to them directly.
Except for one of the chairs of those organisations is John Tamihere. So have you had that discussion with him?
We're working through all of those matters at the moment, so to make sure that we cooperate with the police.
Are you disappointed in John Tamihere for not sharing this information earlier?
Oh, I'm disappointed in ourselves that we got so focused in on doing the mahi that we didn't have the right processes. And so we've got to learn from this and make sure that we do better, not only by ourselves, but by our people. And so we've got to learn and we've got to make sure that we tied it up. So the Electoral Commission says that they're going to help us to make sure that we do it better going forward.
When you consider Rawiri, Waititi and Debingari Wapeka, they've had a huge impact, you know, starting out their political careers. You know, how have the kōrero been with them? I guess they're the ones who are fronting the party and they're going to cop a bit of the flack.
Yeah, so it's a party matter, so that's why I'm covering this. We've been all working on this as soon as it was brought to our attention, and so we've got to just maintain the fact that we will look after each other and support each other through this. That's what whānau doing, so that's what we're doing right now.
Just out of interest, the company Aotearoa Te Kahu, which has donated $120,000, what do you know about that company?
Yeah, so that's connected to people that John knows, and it was given to John, but it's still got to be focused and still got to be reported on from the party, and so, you know, we've reported that now.
Tēnā koe, thank you for joining us this evening, even from I roto i tō waka. We appreciate your time. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora mai, it's important to let our people.
Kia ora. Kia mai tonu mai rā te titiro ākua aka nei, ka wete kina ngātake e pāna ki te pāti Māori e tō mātou pai tō rangapū e tauhenare rawa ko Shane te pau. Auraki mai anō. So not a great day for the Maori Party, who have been referred to police for failing to declare donations totaling $330,000. He raru ki uta, he raru ki tai rānei. A storm in a teacup or a political hurricane? Let's ask Tauhenare and Shane te pau. Tēnā kōrua.
Kia ora, kia ora.
Kia ora. What do you think?
Oh, it's a storm in a teacup as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they're not the first ones to muck up their returns. As we've seen with National, what they tried to do was dodge a $30,000 donation and cut it up into thirds, try to get out of it.
And Billy te kahika with advance.
Oh yeah, look, we can put the focus on the Maori Party, the National Party, and whoever. But the reality is that we have a law that's actually designed to obfuscate, designed to try and jump over that fence and jump over that fence and hide things. And so the law needs to be looked at. The law needs to be revamped so that everybody is clear about their accountabilities. So in terms of Māori Party, I actually think it's a bit of a rookie mistake that the president, rightly so, has he's copped it on the chin, and it's his fault, basically. He's the one that signs it off.
That's right. They're not rookies, though.
No, and explaining is losing aid. Earlier on today, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the president said, well, it was volunteers, Don't blame the people.
No, he did. He said it was a volunteer party.
You and I normally sync on things. I didn't interrupt you, Toe. Can I just say this?
You should.
No. Can I just say this? That no, he did say that it wasn't volunteers. Don't blame the people in the wharakai. Have a look at the pai. I think this is a bad look for the Labour, for the Maori Party, and there's a lot of there's a lot of explaining to do, and I think it's very important that the police investigate if whānau ora money has been used, and I use that word if. I don't think that's a good thing at all, because at the end of the day, it's taxpayer money. And if I was the Minister of Whānau Ora, first thing in the morning, I would write to them, the Auditor General, and I would ask him to investigate.
So how do we know? So how do we know it's whānau ora money?
We don't.
Exactly. So why are we?
Ask the question.
Why are we even
because it's
suggesting?
the National Urban Māori Authority, which is the collective of all the Māori.
So are you saying that the National Urban Māori Organisation only does whānau ora stuff? Does it get no money from anything?
Not only it does a significant amount of whānau ora stuff, but also does social services. It does a whole range of things.
We don't know.
Which lots of it is government funded.
And so do we know now that all of the money that they get from contracts is spent or on their contracts? Do we know that all of their contracts are fulfilled?
All fantastic questions.
We don't know, and that's the point.
Exactly.
And that's the point. And the questions need to be asked, and the right authorities need to be asked.
I guess the thing is, when we've still got people living in cars, when we've got a housing crisis and whānau who have been living in motels now for months and months.
Listen, we've got whānau living in cars, but we gave $250 million to some white fellas running around the harbour.
We need to be better.
Give me a break.
So when we do have that situation, if it's not about how much putia has been spent on it, but it's just really about the moral or
it's about the principle of it.
Here's the principle. Yes. It's okay for Maoris to have principles, and and honestly, this is what you are saying. You are saying that that the Maori organisations should have principles, because there's so many people on the housing waiting list, there's so many people in cars and that, but in the same breath, the government and our council gives $239 million to the America's Cup.
To be fair to me, but to be fair to me, if it was a right-wing party or if it was the ACT Party or the National Party, I'd be asking the same question.
But also, if it was,
can you think of another example?
Well, no, I can't. Yep. No, not
National Party.
Yeah.
No, but it's got to be a social service provider.
I'm talking about social service, non-for-profit. If it was Ash paying money to the Greens or to the Labour Party, I think the questions will need to be asked. And you know what? Toe is right. We don't know. So let's call in the General Auditor to find out. Daylight.
We actually asked Minister for Whānau Ora Peni Henare for a comment today to whether they were going to inquire further, and his response was he's referred us back to the Maori Party. Is that good enough?
No, it's not good enough. No, it's not good enough. All due respect,
my cousin's been very busy.
It's not good enough. It's his watch, and I think he ought to do the responsible thing tomorrow, and he ought to front foot it, because I think the other parties will call in the Auditor General, and let's see what happens.
Okay, Rawiri Waititi, Debbie Ngāre Wapeka, they've made a bit of a bang in their political careers. You say it's a storm in a teacup, but will this damage them in any way?
I mean, if I was in the opposition, if I was in another party, I'd definitely be using it, and they will, and all the Māori caucus will be as well, because that's the game. But the reality is, it actually had nothing to do with the MPs. It's actually got a lot to do, one, with shori bookkeeping, basically. I mean, how are you trying? This is why I think it's a bit of a rookie mistake. To try and hide 300k is near nigh impossible, unless you're really good at the game. As National and Labour are.
So you're saying that they never meant to do any of that, it's just a mistake, they didn't file.
Yeah,
and that's what they say too, that this has got nothing to do with where the donations have come from. This is about the filing error.
And he take our no tera. From where where did the money come from? That's another issue. So I think we should be careful not to mix them all up so that there's this big conspiracy theory. But admittedly, like you say, I know that in a heated debate in the House, I'd use it, and so will the Labour Party.
Yeah, in defence of Debbie and Rawiri. The fact is that this is party matter. This is not about their electoral spending or their electoral donations. If we were, we could be facing a by-election in Waiariki. This is not about them. But of course, they're part of the key people in the Maori Party. And you know, if I was recently elected as a member of Parliament, I would personally want to review every single donation, every single issue, because I know that I would have to defend it in there.
Winston was a class act when it came to this, and he would always say, "Party issue, got nothing to do with me," even though he was a party.
Okay, Ports of Auckland, you wanted to raise that. You've both been.
Yeah, we do. We do want to raise it when it's a very simple analysis here. Not one, not two, but 3 people died under the CEO's watch. The damning report was initiated by the council, and it came back and it said that there were a litany of failures under the CEO's watch, and we believe that he doesn't have the moral imperative or the moral authority to stay, and he should resign.
What do you make of the commentary this week?
Oh, look, I think that my target is not so much Tony Gibson, although he should go, but it's not actually up to me. Yeah. My target is actually the board of Ports of Auckland Limited. The guys like Bill Osborne, Pat Snedden, they should be the ones held responsible, because if they are not responsible for this, then where do we go? Why did we change the law after Pike River? You know, somebody's got to be accountable. Somebody has to be responsible instead of continuing to take a 6-figure sum. Because
when you're thinking about who we're talking about here, 10% of Auckland are Maori, and 150,000 of them often working in these kinds of jobs.
Well, the 2 kaimahi who died were Brown. Brown Lives Matter. And this is the same CEO who, I think in November and December, said, oh, well, part of the problem is the brown folks. He didn't use that term, but that's what he meant. The brown folks that work for us are shy and coming forward, you know, and that's really what got me motivated to ensure that we got this justice for the kaimahi on this
You're coming forward and the whānau are coming forward now, so let's just see what happens. Tēnā kōrua, thank you for filling up our kete tonight with your kōrero. We appreciate it. Ka te rā, ko hikna te hui, e hoa mā pō haukura. The Hui is made with support from New Zealand On Air.